It's 2:47 in the morning. You have to be up in 5 hours, and your brain has decided that right now is the perfect time to replay a conversation from 3 years ago. The thing you said, the thing you should have said, the 17 better versions you've written since. Some part of you is convinced that if you just analyze it hard enough, you'll finally solve it, even though the conversation is over and the other person has forgotten it, so you run it again. Here's the uncomfortable truth. That's not problem solving. That's rehearsing pain. And psychology has spent 40 years figuring out why some brains do this constantly, and how the same wiring that makes you thoughtful can quietly make you miserable. On October 17, 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake hit the San Francisco Bay Area. 63 people died, and a freeway collapsed. By pure coincidence, a psychologist named Susan Nolan Huxama had measured, just 2 weeks earlier, how a group of Stanford students habitually responded to their own bad moods. That handed her something researchers almost never get: a natural experiment. Everyone's thinking style recorded in advance. 10 days after the quake, and again 7 weeks later, she checked on those students. What predicted who was still struggling wasn't how much danger they'd been in, or how much they'd lost. It was how they thought. The students who ruminated, who replayed their distress, analyzed it, turned it over and over, were measurably more depressed, both times. Same earthquake, different thinking style, different outcome. Nolan Hoeksema spent her career on that pattern and gave it a name: rumination. And here's the mechanism that makes it so sticky. Rumination is problem-solving's evil twin. It wears the same costume. When you replay that conversation at 2 a.m., it feels productive. It feels like work. Your brain is doing something, and that feels like progress. But watch closely. Real problem-solving moves. It asks, what's my next step? And ends in an action, a decision, or an acceptance. Rumination circles. It asks, why did this happen? Why did I say that? What's wrong with me? Questions with no exit and no end state. Every lap around the loop reactivates the original sting while producing exactly nothing. And her studies found something worse. People are less effective at solving problems while ruminating, and less likely to act on solutions even when they find them. Thinking about the problem has quietly replaced doing something about it. That's the trap. So why can't you just stop? In 1987, Daniel Wegner asked people to do one simple thing. For 5 minutes, don't think about a white bear. Ring a bell if you do. The bells rang about once a minute. Worse, when those people were later allowed to think about the bear, they thought about it far more than people who'd never suppressed it. That's ironic process theory. To make sure you're not thinking about something, part of your mind has to keep checking for it, which keeps it active. It's why just stop overthinking is the most useless advice in psychology. Fighting a thought with more thought is putting out a fire with gasoline. You know the everyday versions. The text you drafted, rewrote, and never sent. The email you read 5 times before sending and 20 after. The restaurant menu that becomes a hostage negotiation. The meeting from Tuesday you're still chairing in your head on Saturday. None of it looks dramatic from the outside. You're just quiet. That's the strange loneliness of overthinking. It's the most exhausting thing you do all day, and nobody can see you doing it. Now, let's draw the real shape of the problem. Picture a curve. Effort spent thinking along the bottom, quality of the outcome up the side. At first, the line climbs steeply. Thinking works. It's why you don't buy the first car you see. But the line doesn't climb forever. It peaks, the point of enough, and then it bends down. Past the peak, every extra hour of analysis adds options you can't compare, what-ifs you can't test, and doubt you didn't have before. Psychologists can even measure the downhill side. Cian Beilock took skilled golfers and asked them to pay close attention to their swing while putting, and their performance fell apart. Experts get worse when they overthink a skill their body already knows. It's called, literally, paralysis by analysis. So the lesson of the curve isn't don't think. It's that thinking has a peak, and overthinkers blow past it every day. But here's the flip side, because this is not a story about thinking being bad. When researchers took rumination apart, it split into 2 very different habits. One is called reflection, stepping back to ask, what can I learn here? What would I do differently? That kind loops outward, toward action, and it's linked to actually getting better over time. The other is called brooding. Why me? Why do I always do this? That kind loops inward, and it's the one that tracks with depression, same deep thinking, opposite directions. And the machinery itself is genuinely valuable. One study found that people who worry more score higher on verbal intelligence. The imagination that writes disaster movies at 2 a.m. is the same imagination that catches errors, anticipates risks, and sees around corners. Deep thinking isn't the disease. Deep thinking without a destination is. Quick honesty break, because this channel does real psychology, not internet psychology. Overthinking is not a clinical diagnosis. You won't find it in any manual. Much of the rumination research is correlational, and the arrow could point either way, though studies like the Earthquake 1, where thinking style was measured before the stressor, make the arrow look real. And rumination is a risk factor, not a sentence. Plenty of overthinkers are doing fine. What's solid is this. The habit is measurable, it predicts worse moods and worse problem solving, and, the good news, it responds to training, which brings us to the tools. Tool 1, talk to yourself like someone else. Psychologist Ethan Kross ran experiments where people prepared for a stressful speech, half coached themselves with, why am I so nervous? Half used their own name, okay, Sarah, you've handled worse than this. The name group felt less anxious, performed better, and ruminated less afterward. It sounds ridiculous. It works. That tiny grammatical shift creates distance. You become the advisor instead of the patient. You already own this skill. When a friend brings you the exact problem you've been chewing on for weeks, you solve it in 90 seconds. Distanced self-talk points that wisdom at yourself. Tool 2. Give your worries an appointment. It's called stimulus control, and it's been tested since the 80s. Pick the same 15 or 20 minutes every day, say 6 p.m. When a worry shows up outside the window, you don't suppress it. Remember the white bear? You write it down and tell it, 6 p.m. Then at 6, sit down and worry on purpose. 2 things happen. Most of the worries on the list have already expired by the time their appointment comes, and your brain slowly relearns the one thing chronic overthinking made it forget. A thought can arrive without being answered immediately. Postponing, unlike suppressing, actually holds up in trials. Tool 3. Decide what good enough looks like before you start deciding. Researchers followed students hunting for their first job. The maximizers, determined to find the best possible option, landed salaries 20% higher than the satisficers, who just wanted a good option, and still felt worse about their choice. More analysis, objectively better outcome, less happiness. So steal the satisficers trick for everything reversible. Set the bar in advance, take the first option that clears it, and save the deep analysis for the few decisions that deserve it. And when a problem keeps looping anyway, ask the one question rumination cannot survive. What's the next physical action? Why spirals? What lands? Now, here's the twist you saw coming. Some of you have already paused this video to analyze whether you're a brooder or a reflector. Some of you will replay this episode tonight at 2:47, the way you replay everything. So catch the final trap. You cannot think your way out of overthinking, because thinking is the loop's home turf. You act your way out. One sent text, one kept appointment, one good enough decision at a time. The goal was never a quiet mind. It's a mind that moves. If your brain spent the last 8 minutes whispering, "This is literally me," subscribe, because marker theory draws out the psychology behind why you do what you do. Next episode, 7 cognitive biases that are running your life right now, and you can't see a single one of them. See you there.